Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Farnham Board on the 14th of June, 2024. We've got fairly full agenda and an important agenda now because we're sort of starting to move into the delivery phase, and I'll make a few comments when we get to that point. Can I start though, please, by reminding everybody that we are actually in the pre-election period. And although it was right for this meeting to go ahead, there are various restrictions on kind of perhaps what people can say and talk about and so on. So, and all of the elected members will be familiar with the rules. So perhaps if you could just bear those in mind as we move through the agenda, I'd be very grateful. Can I just start with apologies for absence? I know we've had apologies from Jeremy Hunt. Are there any others that and Paul follows? Okay, thank you. Fine, so let's move straight into the agenda then. So actions and minutes from the last meeting. The minutes have been circulated for the meeting, the previous meeting, which was the 22nd of March 2024. Was everybody happy with those? Can I take those as agreed? David?
I should like the HGV penalty charges, and I am still going to cover in the general agenda. We'll pick up in the general agenda. Okay, thank you.
Pick those up. Thank you. Matters arising. Elaine, was there anything that you wanted to flag up from the minutes?
I can run through the actions from the last meeting if you wish. So there was an issue with the central car park loading bay. I know Councillor MacLeod raised with the parking team in Surrey and Waverley about this, who felt that there was an opportunity for a loading bay if possible. We've discussed this further with Councillor MacLeod, and he will pick it up later on with the teams to progress. Thank you. The school street scheme, this was something that was brought up by Councillor Powell. Our latest understanding is the school street schemes, will be completed this year, but it's still to be confirmed by the road safety team. Issues regarding LC Whip will be discussed by Neil McClure in later slides. There was a question about the A31 Network Rail engagement, and we have recently met with Network Rail, LCR and Surrey property team at the opportunity of redevelopment of the station site as it relates to the A31 corridor project. Network Rail have taken the action of going back to their teams and discussing where they are and what their next steps are. Sorry, Catherine.
I'm sorry, Elaine. One of the requests was that you engaged with the local members on some of these discussions. Is there any chance of that happening anytime soon?
Yep, there is, but obviously we need Network Rail to see where their position is first internally before we can kind of engage further, because we don't know what their latest plans are. Temporary monitoring, pre-construction traffic monitoring radar surveys across the town are going to be installed, and which will record certain areas for traffic counts, speed and vehicle lengths. Councillor Powell, you asked for the provision of the data. Once this has been processed, it will be forwarded to you. And that, just so you're all clear, that's to help with the post-monitoring of the scheme. HGVs. I can't read the original one from where I am. We were to speak with the Surrey parking team to check whether additional support for Hampshire HGV ban is required. This is completed and we don't need further support. Thank you, Tim, though, because we are speaking with Hampshire and the plans are being finalised with them.
Should we just deal with the HGV point? David, did you want to say something first before I tell you where we're at?
Our concern, I think, we raised in December and we raised it again in the last one, that the HG penalty charge notice fine of £75 seems like a derisory to us. And we did go back to your street, to your parking team, I think, and I've done some work myself, and it seems that the penalty charge, there's three sets of penalty charge for weight vehicles. One is £100, one is £200, one is £300, plus court costs and everything. And it seems to us that, well, I mean, those sorts of the fines that should be charged to people who are contravening the ban.
Do you want me to respond? I've got a statement from the parking team, if you want me to read it out.
Yeah, okay, you can do that. I mean, first of all, I think it'd be helpful to say that as you know, I think NSL, who do the on-street parking enforcement for the county council, have now got a vehicle, a mobile camera set up. The team have been trained, and it will be coming to Farnham next week. So that is hopefully we will start to see greater compliance with the HGV ban. Obviously, the longer term aim, I'm assuming is if it doesn't stop HGVs, then we will need to put in a fixed camera to do that. But anyway, the good news is that mobile camera will be here next week and be starting to operate. But do you want to deal with the fines?
So what the parking team told me was that in 2022, the Department of Transport released new legislation, which is called the Civil Enforcement of Moving Camera Contraventions, which allows councils to enforce certain restrictions such as HGV weight restrictions. Surrey County Council has gained these powers, and the legislation means that £70 fine can be issued to vehicles in breach of restrictions, which is reduced to 35 if paid within 21 days. However, this fine cannot be increased by Surrey County Council. The system raised by yourself, Councillor Beeman, is an HGV enforcement carried out by a magistrates court. This is a time-consuming process, and it's understood that most councils now use the powers from the 2022 legislation contravening camera enforcement restrictions. And like Tim said, enforcement cameras will start from next week in and around Farnham. For the first 6 months, HGVs identified in contravention of the weight restrictions will be sent a warning letter in the first instance, followed by this penalty charge notice for subsequent offences.
So I think on the basis that it's the on-street enforcement team doing it, that it is capped at £75. It is then an option in theory to bring a prosecution before the magistrates court, but that would be only if there was a complete repeat offender who wasn't responding. So I think we kind of hopefully we will start to see compliance now when they realise that they are being monitored and indeed fined if they don't comply.
I would say it seems far too little, but there we go.
Oh, yeah. I think the important thing here is to stop the HGVs coming through the town. So I think there's a similar argument in terms of the fines on utility companies if they overrun works and so on. The amounts are not perhaps sufficient in terms of being a really strong deterrent. But I think let's see where we get to. I think it'll be. I think it will. We will see a noticeable improvement very quickly.
Okay. So just as a reminder, I'd like to draw your attention to the key successes so far. We haven't all been quiet. There's been lots of activities which the programme has achieved in Farnham. A great deal of work has been carried out by the team and completed. So just if you wanted more detail, the progress report highlights what we've worked on since the last board in March 2024. So what's happening next? So as you're aware, Waden Lane and the town centre 20-mile-an-hour schemes are now complete, and the traffic regulation order is now active. New additional vehicle activated signs will be installed at the same time as the Upper Hale scheme across the town. So there are some additional ones going in. On the 20-mile-an-hour limits and zones and speed restrictions in Upper Hale, the consultation for the physical measures, which was the tables and crossings and the speed limit, has been completed now, and the traffic regulation order has been reviewed and accepted by the Surrey member, and is now with the TRO team to make the order. We're ready in for construction, which we hope to start at the end of July, and it's expected to last approximately 5 weeks and will be undertaken as night works to avoid clashes with other works in the area.
So Elaine, as you know, at the moment, the Sandy Hill Road is also closed. And closing even to do night works on the Upper Hill Road at the same time as the Sandy Hill Road is closed, to me is completely unacceptable and creates too higher impact on North Farnham to do those two pieces of works together. As you know, we have discussed this, and I think that the reality is we have to do what we can to accelerate the works that South East Water are doing, and then we're going to have to do the 20-mile-an-hour after that, because I don't believe you can do those two things simultaneously. Even if you only have closures at night, the impact is just too significant. And it will not just impact on North Farnham. If that road is as impacted as I believe it will be by the works that are being proposed, it will also impact on the town centre.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Yes, we're talking with our streetworks team about this, and we'll feed back your comments.
It might be appropriate at this point to just talk generally about the scheduling of the works, bearing in mind that the works are due to start generally in the town in September, and I know that the concerns have been expressed by the retailers, particularly around the potential closure of the car park. So, I mean, I think a few points. I mean, there's an absolute commitment from the team to minimise the disruption to retailers and to residents across the town. That's that. But there will be disruption. I mean, this is, there is a significant programme of works, and I'm afraid there will be times when roads will have to be closed and so on. But and hopefully there won't be too many unexpected interventions from utility companies as well, which can often cause even more disruption to the planned works. So I think that what I'm suggesting we do, the way that we take this forward is, there has to be full engagement and communication with retailers and residents. And I know that, and just on the simple point around Victoria Road, I think those works will not start before January. I think that is, I know there's been concerns from retailers. What I'm going to suggest is that the three county councillors, Andy, Michaela and Catherine, are the sort of coordinators between the team, between Elaine and her team, and between the residents and the retailers. A lot of work needs to be done to schedule the works in a way that they are the disruption is minimised as much as possible. And I think, and I would ask that the three county councillors then are the liaison point with the borough council and with the town council. There will be a need to take decisions fairly quickly. There probably will be last minute changes. The team are scheduling in the contractors as we speak. And there is an option, I think, to do some of the works that aren't going to involve road closures between now and the end of the year. But to Catherine's point, you've got all these other activities, the 20 mile per hour and so on in North Farnham, and all of this needs to be looked at in one sort of coordinated way. I think in an ideal world, looking at the town council, there would be, one or two of the elected members or Ian the clerk would be empowered to take decisions if your constitution requires a full council meeting, I think that's going to be really difficult for you to get those meetings scheduled in if decisions need to be taken. So in some form, to have, ideally a couple of representatives from the town council and a couple of representatives from the borough council, Tony or whoever, that can sort of clear those lines behind the scene. But for the three county councillors to do the excellent work that they have done in relation to the LC whips, where they've coordinated local meetings and so on, so that and then to funnel that through to the team, but with an absolute commitment from Elaine and the team to work closely with all of the stakeholder partners in the scheduling of these works, and to build in as much flexibility as possible, accepting that this is a two-year scheme, and it will be fantastic when it's finished, but there will be some pain as we go through. But I think one of the things that I've asked that Ben and the comms team do is to produce either a weekly or a very regular top briefs newsletter, which all parties can feed into, so that there's accurate, good quality, timely information going out across the whole town in terms of what works are happening when and where and so on. Catherine.
So I think that the model that we would like to look to use is the same model we used when we were looking at East Street, so that once we understand what it is we're going to be building, that we take each of the sections of the town in sequence and sit down with the relevant stakeholders, the town council, the Waverley Borough Council, the relevant retailers on that particular road, and talk about things like, what does this impact in terms of residents? What does it impact in terms of deliveries? What can we do under lane closures? What do we need to do under road closures? So that we have a really clear idea of each of the areas to minimise the impact for each of the areas. And then recognising that depending on what happens and how long things actually take, the actual sequence that things take place in may need to change, because we know that there's some works that we really would like to do over the summer. In fact, probably have to be done over the summer because they're just so impactful. And I think, we really do need to sit down, and I know that the traditional strategy with street works is to do one permit at a time. But the reality is, if you're going to impact on the town centre for 2 years, we're in the situation now where we're already trying to cram lots of stuff in before the works start, which is what's driving some of the clashes in other parts of the town. So I think if we can have that more holistic view, working with, the local councillors, but also the relevant officers within Surrey, we will come up with a better solution for the town, and, that will minimise the impact. We are very cognizant of the fact that if we drag things out, that actually may not help anyone at the end of the day, because, having things running for a longer period of time has impact for a longer period of time. Having things running for a longer period of time has a higher cost. But there is a balance to be struck between all of the different requirements. Nobody's going to be happy, but what we need to do is we need to advertise the fact the town is open, how to get to the car parks in the town, how the buses are running in the town, where deliveries can be made for the businesses, and how that fits in with the events that the town runs, and where the events may need to shift a little bit and be a little bit flexible in terms of location, to fit around some of the works. And we need to have those discussions early. So I think it would be really helpful. But I think in the short term, the thing that concerns me is that we have to have a list of the decisions we need to make, because at the moment that's not clear to me. I've spoken to a number of other members of the board this morning, and it's not clear to them either. So if we can have a list of the decisions that you want us to make from Hannah, and I know Hannah's very good at communicating those sorts of things. So the list of decisions we need to make, when we need to make them, and then we can go about working out, and ensuring that all the right stakeholders are engaged in those conversations to try to make it move as smoothly as possible.
I'll go down this way. So starting with Andy.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I fully support what you said, Tim. I just wanted to comment that Elaine's team set up a very positive meeting we had earlier this week with the bid team. And it was a very interesting meeting, actually, because they were very positive in many ways, but some of them said they didn't feel they'd been sufficiently consulted, despite the enormous amount of consultation that's gone on. It's typical of what happens with consultation, that people sort of ignore things until it's beginning to affect them. It was a very positive meeting, and Ellen's team and I were very much listening to what and it's resulted in many of the things that you've said, actually, Tim. That's been the outcome of that meeting. The other thing I wanted to comment while I've got the floor, if you like, in terms of the 20 mph thing, it's very much supported in the town, but we've certainly had complaints from Castle Street residents and from West Street residents that particularly in the evening, the limit has been completely ignored and people are still speeding up the road, at enormous speeds and so on. So we just need to be aware that we're getting that sort of feedback from residents. And some people are saying we need more enforcement. They always say that we need more signs and rounders on the road. But of course, we've got the opposite pressure, that people don't want to see a lot more signs and rounders and the lights of Castle Street. So it's a very difficult issue. But I just thought I'd bring it to your attention, Tim.
And then that is the dilemma with 20 mph. I mean, at the end of the day, the drivers need to self-regulate. And unless you put in road interventions, it is very difficult to and police enforcement is sporadic. So I think that's we just got to kind of live with that in a sense. But I mean, it's unless there is enthusiasm for putting in some further measures, which I doubt there is, and I think we just have to kind of keep an eye on it.
So just to kind of fill the gap there, in Castle Street and other streets in the town, as part of the TRO that's recently gone out, or will be going out, sorry, it's gone over to our other team. There are raised tables, and that will obviously be the physical measures that people won't be able to go beyond that speed. So, yeah. There's 2 in Castle Street. There's one at the junction with the borough and one at Long Garden Walk, is it, I think?
I'm looking at Ian because that's a surprise to me.
I think the one at the turn into Castle Street is probably expected, but I don't think the one at Long Garden Walk is expected. I don't know that I've seen that before.
Oh.
The plans for ages.
Okay, well let's okay. So there we are. So there are going to be some road interventions. Michaela.
I fully support what Councillor Powell's just said. And I also thank the team and Councillor Oliver for being more imaginative in the way this project's going forward and taking in the feelings of the town and the businesses. And I'm sure we'll look forward to working together to make this scheme, because it will hopefully be as lovely as the design is set out. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. David, I think you were next.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now look, to start off with, we all accept for the game we've got to have some pain. Let's be quite clear about that. We understand that. And in fact, we want to try and be as supportive and helpful as possible. Let's make it quite clear about that as well. I suppose in the phasing, we've always supported the views of the county council that there should be a phasing programme. But I suppose we were feeling a little bit, we were having meetings with businesses, but not with the town council. That gave us some sort of EBGBs, I suppose. And last night at full council, we did pass a recommendation with implications for town centre, retail and residential areas. Town council would seek to be involved in the phasing plan with further report to the July town council strategy and resources meeting. Now, I want to be as helpful as possible. And we just want to be involved, not involved in at the moment. And as I say, if needs be, we have schemes of delegation which means we can act fairly fast if necessary.
And I hope that the last however many years, so, you know, there has been full involvement of all three tiers of local government. I mean, I think I have to make the point that, you know, we're now getting to the delivery phase. It is the responsibility of Surrey County Council as the Highways Authority to deliver the scheme and to do it in a compliant way. And I suppose all I'm flagging up is that we need to because, you know, once the contractors are engaged, you know, that it will have a slightly life of its own, and we just need to make sure that there is the ability to make quick decisions, and that's why I'm asking that it's funneled through the three county councillors. In particular, because you know, in case something needs to go back to the county anyway. But I think if I don't think it's going to work just leaving decisions to this forum when actually when the program works has started. So it's not in any sense intended, quite the reverse, to exclude the town council or the borough council from that engagement. But we just need to have some from the team's perspective, bearing in mind there's a significant team within the county council across all different departments, whether it's comms, street works, you know, ringway and everything else. There's a lot of things to do, and I think if we can try and contain that feedback through the three county councillors, then that would be, I think, helpful and would ensure that there's no cross wires or complications.
I would repeat it. I mean, we are trying to be supportive. Please don't get me wrong. And in fact, you know, all we're asking is to be kept involved. Because if there's a problem like the rises, God forbid, but I mean, no doubt there will be. The people who come to the town council ask us what the situation is. So we need to be kept fully informed. Communication at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the three county councillors who absolutely, I'm certain, will make sure that you know, that engagement remains. It's really to put something in place that will enable us collectively to make quick decisions if we need to. Ian?
On a different point, Elaine mentioned about town council moving some of its events. West Street events, for example, to allow traffic to move through, could be moved, and we're keen to work with the team who are going to be managing Brightwells to use the square in Brightwells to move some of the events that take place. So once the new manager has got his feet under the table, we'll be having those conversations, but we do need to start planning now. So if your team can be connected in with Charles and others, then we will make sure we plan those in for next year.
Yep, that's a yes. Okay, right. So, Elaine, do you want to push on? Thank you.
Okay, so on Borelli Walk, the Borelli Walk Cycle Improvement Scheme is a riverside shared cycle and pedestrian path which goes from South Street to the riverside car parks. This forms part of the medium-term interventions, and it's a priority east-west link in the LC WIP, which we are delivering early. The red route shown on the plan will be delivered by Surrey County Council, and we have been in discussion with Crest Nicholson for them to deliver the sections shown in blue as part of their bridge construction and also making good the entrance on South Street. The preliminary design shown in red is almost complete, and we are finalising the environmental mitigations and urban design, which includes lighting. We have completed some ecological and tree surveys to support this. The construction of the red section is provisionally scheduled for December this year to align with when the works will be reduced over the Christmas period in the town centre. And we have a meeting with the contractor later today to discuss the construction programme and timings in more detail. Thank you.
Any comments on that, Ian?
Obviously, that's land in our ownership, so we like to meet with the contractors and yourselves as well, just to make sure that we can tie up any signs and things that we need to be doing.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll talk to you afterwards. Thank you.
Obviously, for the route to be usable, I know that Crest Nicholson is not in the room, but do we have any timescales for when they are likely to deliver their sections?
No, sorry, we don't. Those conversations are still ongoing at the moment.
The next one is for Neil McClure, who's on the line.
Thank you, Elaine. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, just as a summary recap of where we got to with the LSWIP work. So the key message, and I'll go through sort of a bit of the background and the sort of next steps, actions that are coming up. But the key message is that we're still progressing towards the moving forward with the feasibility of the priority routes. And these are obviously the priority routes that have been agreed with from the Surrey Councillor-led stakeholder sessions at the end of last year. The headline action now is for us to agree the scope, which is the first phase of those routes that we're able to take forward into the feasibility stage with the available budget. Obviously, LSWIP is a strategic long-term plan. This is the first phase, but the intention is that over a period, the 10+ year period of the LSWIP plans, subject to funding, all routes are taken through the feasibility. So the proposal for the work and the scope that we're looking to take forward from Atkins and the Arabs teams that are involved in the county-wide LSWIP programme is ready. And that's due now for discussion with Surrey councillors, Waverley Borough and Farnham Town councillors. So the delays to moving forward, and acknowledge there are delays to this process, is that for us to move forward into the stage 2 of the LSWIP, which is the second stage of feasibility after the plan is completed, the step required before we can move forward is the agreement of a series of proposed updates and revisions, maintenance revisions to the LSWIP plan that have come forward from Waverley Borough. Need to be agreed before we can move forward, and that in part links to the priority routes that we're looking to take forward at the same time. So that this is the subject of the addendum to the Farnham LSWIP report. So the addendum, which I think is on some of the slide information here as well, it serves two purposes. So the first important piece is that it captures the more recent stakeholder engagement, as I mentioned, from the Surrey Council-led sessions, i.e. the agreed priority routes. And the second piece is that the revisions from Waverley Borough, the updates to the signed off LSWIP plan that was signed off over a year ago, need to be agreed for adoption into their planning policy framework. So the revisions by Waverley Borough taken to their executive last month, and the agreed action that came out of that meeting was for the adoption of the final version of the addendum by Waverley Borough to be delegated to councillors follows, Townsend and Williams, along with the Waverley Borough Joint Strategic Director of Place. So for the delegated authority decision to happen, for this to happen, a joint meeting is required between Surrey, Waverley Borough officers, Surrey County Councillors, Waverley Borough Councillors and Farnham Town Councillors to discuss and agree the final content of the addendum. So appreciating there's lots of people involved here in terms of calendars and trying to line things up, but a meeting was finally scheduled last week, Tuesday, 4th of June. However, unfortunately, late apologies were received on the Monday, the day before, from Councillor Williams and Councillor Follows due to other commitments relating to the general election build-up, which is fully understandable. But both, as part of the delegated authority, were required at the meeting. So for the first reason, the meeting itself wasn't going to be able to go forward. But in addition, the team here did take advice from Democratic Services at Surrey and Highways Engagement and Commissioning teams. And actually on pre-election advice for the guidelines there, the meeting actually needed to be postponed at the same time. So twofold, the meeting is being rescheduled. So my team is now trying to find a date. As I say, there's a lot of people involved. We're looking at the 2 weeks after the general election to hold the meeting. I've just checked the poll. There's an online poll that's out there. We are still awaiting some availability, but the hope is that we'll get a meeting in the calendar ASAP on the back of that. And as I say, the meeting itself is the discussion agreement that then ultimately moves us forward with the priority routes that we take into the feasibility stage alongside, which I say in part is linked to some of that piece of work on the priority routes, is the Waverley Borough-led revisions to the LSWIP plan that then goes forward. So in summary, I mean, the expectation is that you won't see this slide at the next Farnham Board. There should be more detail around the feasibility stage routes that were then in progress by that stage is the intention. But I think, yeah, that covers where we're at. If anyone else has any queries, questions.
Thank you for the update, Neil. It's obviously quite disappointing that we discussed the need for that meeting at the last Farnham Board meeting, which was in March, and it took until the 4th of June to get a meeting organised, but was then cancelled less than 24 hours notice, and it's now going to push that out another 6 to 8 weeks. So I guess my request of Waverley Borough Council, since it was predominantly cancelled because of the Waverley Borough Councillor availability, would be please can I ask that Tony encourages the people who have the delegated authority to please respond to the request for dates in those 2 weeks so that we can move this forward as quickly as possible.
And can I suggest that there are also substitutes lined up for those members in case there's change of circumstances.
Okay, on to Water Lane. So as you can see, construction's complete. It's being used. You can see on the photos. We have had some requests for some additional keep clear markings, and although these weren't sort of part of the road safety audit requests or anything like that, we've listened to what people have said, and we're working with our streetworks team to find some road space to complete this work, as there is a nighttime diversion route in place until the end of June. There will also be a post-construction road safety audit, and this has been scheduled for the beginning of July.
So I'm just going to point out again, I know we've corresponded on this, the nighttime closure is not every night. And I think the keep clear signs are becoming an issue and really do need to be reinstated at the earliest possible moment. I'd also like to point out that the keep clear signs were on the drawings that were distributed, and therefore they're not additional. They are what everyone was expecting to see, certainly from a councillor perspective. And I know they were on the drawing on the wall in the Farnham Town Council offices. And there were some other issues that were raised by a resident regarding some additional safety issues, and I just want reassurance that they will be considered by the road safety audit.
Yeah, they will be considered. Just to be clear, the drawings which were shown at Farnham Town Council were pre-road safety audit. Just to give you some insight to the technical of it, if you have too much white lining on the road, they have glass beads inside and it can cause a slip hazard, which is why the team were reticent to put them in, and that was recommended as part of the road safety audit. As regards to, however, that's been cleared up now, so we've been talking to the road safety team about that. With regards to the nighttime diversion, the streetworks teams were concerned that there's too much going back and forwards between the two different diversion. It may be confusing for people, but I will take your concerns back. Thanks. And now everyone has already skipped forward on this town centre stuff. I don't know what I'm reporting now. Thank you, Waverley, for your formal award of the 3.2 million Silbid. Thank you. So there's been a lot of work going on in the background, as you can imagine, leading up to construction. We've been in discussions, and I will literally list them out, with material suppliers, heritage team, maintenance asset, lab teams for material styles and suitability, things like the ironstone, the paving, which is outside the back, how it will fit into the urban design. We've had engagement with Brightwells, because obviously we're making sure that they're trying to match the styles and the colours, etc. So that was sort of accelerated. So thank you everyone who's been involved in that as well. We've had lots of discussions about street furniture, urban design. So that's the things like the benches, chairs, the bus shelters, the bins, the rain gardens, the trees, the bike stands, all the little bits which sort of give that urban sort of cohesive feel, really, and make it a nice place to be. So we've had those discussions with, again, members, heritage teams, maintenance teams, etc., etc. I thank you for the Surrey team, Surrey members, if you can kind of funnel that kind of final decision from everybody. We're not help assist with it's the street furniture. Obviously, I know that we've spoken with Farnham Town Council about that, and we need kind of some decisions. And if we could just get that in writing, that would be really helpful. We've had some CCT drainage surveys to support the design work. We've started, I'm sure you've seen us in town doing some trial trenches. This is to see the depth, etc., of the utilities which are in the town at key points. That's obviously going at night works at the moment. As I've said before, we've deployed some pre-construction traffic monitoring radar surveys across the town, which will record, the traffic counts and the type of vehicles and the speeds. We've also had the parking review consultation report published, and as at the last board, the Park Row and Hyde Park Row will be taken out of the scheme. And as we talked about before, which everyone jumped forward before I was to say it, the phasing of the works. So we're talking, and we've and like Andy McLeod said, it's been a really good engagement so far with members and businesses. So this is like the first step before we kind of start really getting into the nuts and bolts with emergency services and, you know, all of the usual major stakeholders. But all of these meetings do not feel that we haven't collated all these comments, and we will be considering them. So, but it is just, as you can imagine, you know, it's not just businesses, there's residents, you know, there's visitors, etc., bus services. There's a lot of people that we do have to kind of consider, and our recent discussions with Waverley about car park closures, you know, the impact of these major diversions pre-Christmas, we understand, and we're trying to make it as painless as possible for everybody. I'm going to hand over now to Ben Funning, our communications manager, to talk further about the kind of the comms for the town.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. There is a comprehensive communications plan. It's being developed alongside the contractor. It's kind of just with the project team at the moment. We're just reviewing and sense checking before, and the intention is to share with the wider partners in the near future. They'll also make some amends because there's been some comments today. So some of the things that Councillor Power was talking about getting into town and car parks. So I'll make sure some of that is reflected in what we're looking to do. There's three main elements to what we're looking to do with communications. There's the pre-com, so what we're going to do beforehand. That's what we'll be looking to sort of get started probably over the summer, and then ramp it up after the school holidays in September as we get a bit closer. Then kind of feeding into what Councillor Power was talking about with the sequencing work, we'll do some specific work for each different phase just to make sure that everybody knows what's coming and when. And I've kind of just given a flavour of what we're looking at. We're looking at doing face-to-face engagement, letter drops, particularly to those sort of residents and businesses when they're sort of going to be directly impacted, on-street signage, the e-newsletters that Tim was mentioning earlier on, lots of web social media updates and working with the local media as well. And it's that important point around getting accurate, timely and good quality information out. I don't want any surprises. I want everyone to kind of know what's happening and when. The other element that we're just planning out and will feed out from some of the feedback that we had with the bid and the businesses earlier this week is a wider campaign to encourage people to continue coming into the town during the works. And that's not just perhaps people who live within Farnham, but looking at that wider catchment area as well. And that's when some of the points that Catherine Powell was talking about in terms of getting into town and car parks become really important. And we want to, really value the support of the partners. Obviously, the town council has lots of events that will be good to sort of tap into and utilise. We'd like to use the bid and really take a really big joint approach there and give a positive and enduring view of the town throughout the works and onwards. And particularly, we'd like to kind of think around those key times for traders, such as Christmas, and as well as I mentioned the town centre events, just to try and pull those together if we can, and just do something really, really positive. And so to help the traders carry on. But happy to answer any questions on that.
So Ben, it all sounds great. Having done a few, when we did the Farnham Park one, that was obviously, we had learning points from that. I think is probably the phrase. I think there's quite a lot of learning from East Street and not wanting to have multiple false starts, shall we say, and be very clear that we're sending comms out. I think it would be really helpful for us to have some early discussions about the sorts of things we think need to be in that regular communication, just so that we're capturing, because obviously there's Farnham Town Council events, there's a whole list of things, and it would be good, probably Farnham Town Council should own that bit, can go into a general document, but we probably need to have a bit of a discussion about that, if that's all right with you, sooner rather than later.
Yep, that's absolutely fine. Like I say, it's, we need to pull on all the partners and work together to do this and make sure it's a success.
And I think, ideally one, if it's an e-newsletter, one document that other partners contribute to, so there's kind of one version of the truth. I think that'd probably be helpful. Ian?
Yeah, we'd welcome the opportunity of having maybe an early meeting to schedule the work. So once we've got the phasing element sorted out, so that we can link events, and we're also, if you're going to get a branded gazebo, we'll look after it for you, you know, that sort of thing, so that you can then, we can allocate it for the different events and activities going on. But I think linking in with Brightwell's yard again is going to be really important. So maybe we can set a meeting up in the next month or so on that.
If we could get some additional signage for Riverside car parks, those are Waverley car parks, and there isn't a huge amount of sort of signage to point you in the Riverside areas. So if Dawn can pick that up, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Back to you, Elaine, are we? Yep.
So looking at the kind of high level programme of where we are, an earlier start date was requested for the town centre in the previous board, and as we've discussed, it's still programmed to start from September this year. We are unable to start earlier due to conflicting road space of schemes such as Upper Hale, utility works, East Street, Brightwell Works, you know, the waterworks on Sandy Hill, Councillor Powell talked about. However, the first activities will be to set up the site compound, it being the Riverside 2 car park, or we're just looking at the Warmead one today. There'll be some utility work, so there will be some, you know, isolated areas we'll be targeting, and Borelli's. We are concerned, like I said before, about the run up to Christmas with businesses and the car parks, and we have listened and will be re-looking at that with the contractor today.
So previously we did discuss having a version of this that had all of the key works on it. I think that given the discussions we're having about phasing and some of the interdependencies, it would be really useful to show some of those things, just so that we know, you know, where we, I think because we have got into that situation where, because of things beyond our control, actually in the main, we have got works now being squished, which is causing other problems. It would be really useful to list the major schemes that are outside of the FIP that are influencing factors. And I'm more than happy to help with that in terms of what's going on in North Farnham, but I'm sure Michaela and Andy will know the same in their areas.
As you can imagine, because they're private developers generally and utility works, it's quite difficult to get that information, Catherine.
But some of them are ours.
Yeah. Certainly the streetworks team will know what permits they're granting. The issue is, and which is going to be the challenge, where utility companies in particular you know, do emergency works where we don't have any prior notice of that. But I think, to Catherine's point, the more comprehensive we can have you know, a Gantt chart that sort of sets out what we know is happening would be helpful.
I've tried my best with the pink on the thing. It's the external ones which are outside of our control. So moving on to the A31 corridor, as you know, this was submitted in 2021 and approved recently. We're reviewing the cost, programme and design to ensure it's cost effective and the best benefits for Farnham. It will identify key steps required for us to move to outline business case. We've been in communication with the Department of Transport, and we've submitted an online programme from them, but very, very high level at this time. However, we have got our consultants reviewing the potential for a low-cost option, such as widening the existing Fairgrove Bridge, etc. So we are having some value engineering exercise just at this critical stage before we move to outline. So that is what's happening at the moment.
I mean, I think that the challenge is going to be what schemes are going to continue, you know, with the new government. So, why would we be doing a value engineered scheme at this stage, and not just stick with the full fat version?
Because the costs have gone up badly in 2 years. I don't need to tell you about the economic situation. So that's why we're re-looking at it, just because it still has to be affordable for DFT and ourselves with match funding. So that's why we're re-looking at it. But on the other side, I forgot to say that we are updating the county transport model with the COVID adjustments. that the DFT require for the assessments, as well updating with the transport, the new web tag appraisal guidance update, which are changes, sorry, this isn't my thing, to the economic parameters, realism testing and output parameters. So economic, realism and output.
I think we should focus, on the full scheme. It may be that in conversations with DFT, it will have to be value engineered down, but I would certainly start with, Catherine.
I know I sent you a message the other day that was a bit off the wall about walking and cycling routes underneath solar panels, and I know your initial reaction was not terribly positive, but I do think that we should we should look at it. And I understand that solar panels are fragile, or some of them can be very fragile, and I understand that's why your reaction was the way it was, putting it next to a road. I do understand that, but I would like us to think and to have some value engineering but integrated discussions, because I think if we can use space for more than one thing, then it adds value to that space. And I think that there are also some flood resilience things along the A31 corridor that Farnham Town Council will need to look at as part of its update to the Farnham Neighbourhood Plan, that we probably also need to be thinking about as we're doing this. And I think that would actually strengthen the bid to the DFT, given that it is in a floodplain and it does, or parts of it are. It's worth thinking about having some of those conversations to see if we can show added value.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment about the neighbourhood plan and the local plan, because obviously we've just had a call for sites which Waverley have led. And in our recent neighbourhood plan task group, the councillors were keen to ensure that if there's any, we try and retain any future opportunities in schemes. So things that may not be currently absolutely planned, but will be coming in the life cycle of the local plan or neighbourhood plan, that those schemes are coming forward in the call for sites, because it's not just about housing sites, it's about strategic opportunity sites as well. So the Recklesham Relief Road, for example, could have been such a site like that could still come forward, because there will never be any funding if it's not in the strategic plans. So we know we've obviously got to get those in. And we don't know whether in your conversations with the rail partnership team, whether they've actually made a submission for the local plan, but it would be very useful for any thinking that they're having to get that into the mix to be considered.
Totally agree. Yep. Okay, just some key milestones. Phase 2 for Upper Hale start in July. We've discussed this earlier. We know, Catherine. Water Lane, the Keep Clear markings we've discussed earlier. The Borelli cycle improvement scheme intended to tie in with the town centre scheme during the Christmas period. The town centre, as you know, has been brought forward to September this year. And then the LC whip, just kind of a delay for the approval of the report and the addendum due to additional comments, meeting dates, etc.
Lena, just so we're absolutely clear, that the works in the town centre will be the subject of discussion and consultation. So people shouldn't be taking away from this meeting that those are going ahead as currently planned. So it might be just the use of language, but just to be clear that there will be further discussions, and I'm expecting that the Victoria Road part of the scheme will not start this side of Christmas. And so anyway, but those are the conversations that you can all take forward.
And just to be really clear, if you try to do the Upper Hill Road at the same time as Sandy Hill Road is closed, I will lie down in the road.
So the next one, risks, availability of funding. I think we've done quite well on funding so far with the A31 bid, the Waverley bid, etc. So, we are reviewing it as we go through for any emerging additional money we can get in for Farnham. We've also got the worry of, central government policy changing and obviously the recent political change potentially. Scope creep, we are controlling this, I think, between the parties, but the support from Farnham Board has been really good because it does control the scope for me. Inflation, like I said, for A31 has an impact on these sort of schemes. An achievable programme, there are, as we've just discussed, a number of interdependencies and projects. So making sure that we have these regular catch-ups between us all is very helpful for the team to make sure it's kept on track.
Thank you, Elaine. Any comments on that item? Catherine?
I can just go back one slide, Elaine, and read the bottom one. I haven't seen the slides, so I'm struggling to see what the bottom one says, but I don't think you talked about it. Oh, sorry.
It is an opportunity of aligning South Street and Union Road. I think it's the resurfacing. So we are working on that and it is an opportunity, but it's just great because it actually gets it during the actual closures at the same time.
So far, we haven't mentioned buses, have we? And I don't know what the current state is with negotiations with Stagecoach, please.
I have a meeting with the managing director of Stagecoach on Tuesday to resolve the issue.
South, I presume, is it? Stagecoach South, Mark Ready, is it? Or not? Or higher than that?
The managing director, which I know of Stagecoach UK or whatever they are. Okay, I think we had one question, didn't we? Elaine, do you want to just deal with that?
Councillor Hyman wrote into the board. This is the question in a nutshell. Will the board members please give concerned businesses and residents their collective and personal assurances that their commitment to good practice, the law and transparency will ensure that by convening further meetings if necessary to the above stages, which was mentioned earlier in the letter, and will be respected and duly carried out prior to proceeding to the TRO stage and commencements of the works. If not, then please explain explain which of the stages will be omitted and why. So I'm assuming there's two parts to this. So just as far as the town centre goes, it's not usual practice for us to publish technical detailed drawings or assessments for Surrey schemes publicly because it could cause misinterpretation and take up considerable officer time, which is best directed to the scheme. However, for the A31 scheme, any documentation will be scrutinised by the DFT, who are the funder, and follow the TAG process, which is a transport assessment guidance process, along with public consultation prior to any decisions that are made. This will include any appropriate information. But for the town centre scheme, it is not a DFT scheme, it is a highway scheme, so it would follow a different approval process. It will have a separate business case, which will go through internal due diligence boards, which are infrastructure board, capital programme panel and cabinet for final approval. Post-scheme installation, there will be a road safety audit, 3, and monitoring mitigation will be reviewed.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. I don't think there were any other public questions. Catherine?
So just one last thing. Obviously on the to-do list is still the North and South Farnham studies, which we are still concerned about the impact of traffic being displaced into North and South Farnham. So once we have the monitoring data that you're doing now and that's shared, I think we do need to just sit and look at it and just look at that in the context of the modelling you've done and just make sure that there's nothing in there that changes anything. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Dawn, with an Andy.
Thank you. I just wanted to raise an issue, Elaine is aware of it, around Waycourt East and the doctor's surgery works that we're doing over the road at the moment. There is a, doctors would really like to have a crossing outside there. I know we've spoken to you about it, Elaine. I suspect that the doctor's surgery will raise that before they move in. And we have been talking to you for a while about it, I know that, but if it can't be controlled crossing, I think the feeling is that maybe it could be a two-stage zebra or something, but the doctors are really concerned that there won't be a crossing there.
Thanks, Dawn. What I wrote back to one of your colleagues about was we did look at accident patterns in that area. I understand what you are saying, and actually predominantly the personal injury accidents were occurring at Gostrey Meadow, Borelli's Walk. So we thought it was best place because that's the height, and we looked at the flows of pedestrians as well, and that was the best place to actually connect any car parks and connect that route from the station. So it would be a safer route. Also, any changes to that particular junction, which is obviously taking traffic from South Street, north and south in, would have a significant impact on traffic through the town. So if we cause any delay at that particular junction, it would be quite significant, I would say, which is why we looked at a zebra where people can walk within breaks of the traffic rather than actually stopping the traffic for a significant time. So we have looked at it in quite a lot of detail. The guard railing will be coming out, which makes it a lot wider for people to cross. And I know that's been an aspiration for quite a few members of Farnham Town Council as well. So as part of the works, we'll make sure that that happens and kind of tidy up that junction, which I know Councillor Beeman said he can get across quite well.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Elaine mentioned in the review of the actions from the last minutes, the possible discussions on using the central car park for delivery bay. And this could be particularly valuable, particularly during the build process when Downing Street may be closed, or even more permanently. And Michaela and I, Michaela, of course, is a retailer in Downing Street, in discussion with other retailers, there's certainly a number of them who would be very keen on it. These discussions didn't seem to be going very well. And I mentioned this to Tony, who is fortunate to have on the board, and he happens to be the portfolio holder. And I'd just like to thank Tony for having intervened personally now and pushing these discussions a bit forward. We don't know what the outcome will be, but at least they're now being seriously discussed. So thank you for Tony for that.
By way of quick update to what Andy was saying, he's absolutely right. We are progressing. There's already, I think anyone who lives in Farnham gets up relatively early in the morning knows there's a sort of informal delivery bay, which certainly Ryman's use. And I think the idea is that there will be an extension to that whilst Downing Street is being modified, however you want to phrase it. So yes, we're aware of it, and we're very much sympathetic to what's required.
Yeah, David.
Things one is that I'd like to say, well, thanks to I believe that we had some concerns over Ironstone, but I'd like to thank, I think it's Chris Reynolds, is it? Chris Reynolds is looking very, from your authority, and also working well with FIP Piper, which is giving us some reassurance, I think is the best thing I'm saying. So that's one thing. The second thing is, well, we talk about A31, which could be well in the future. There's one thing that is now on the radar, and that is, of course, the Woolmead site, which is allegedly so, although still be formally announced, I believe, to Homes England. And as we've raised this matter before, and certainly we would like to see at the earliest, when that becomes a formal announcement, we'd like to see early discussions, certainly with Homes England, whoever may be involved, about the potential that might exist by just taking small pieces of land to create a two-way movement along Woolmead Road, so that we can actually pedestrianise part of East Street, and also the possibilities for a north-south cycleway. So I hope that will be on the radar.
I think Dawn's going to give an answer.
Thank you. Yes, Homes England have acquired the site. I've met with them a number of times about their acquisition. Because of the pre-election period, they're not doing any proactive comms at the moment, but they have confirmed in a statement that can be used if asked that Homes England have purchased the former Woolmead site in Farnham. Woolmead is a challenging brownfield site that has the potential to have a transformational impact on the town. We look forward to working with all partners to secure the delivery of this site. And I did say to Jenny earlier that in my meetings with Homes England, I've told them that they need to engage with Farnham Town Council very early on.
Well, they might like to give the county council as a welcome gift a bit of free land. So
So that's what I was going to say, Dawn. I think we've had a lot of discussions about, you know, road safety, north-south connectivity, all of that falls under highways. So I think it would be really useful if they would also engage with the Surrey councillors and Surrey. Thank you.
good, thank you. It'll be interesting to see what after the election, what their plans are for all that site. Sorry, Elaine.
I was just picking up about the ironstone, and there's someone in the audience keeps reminding me. Just to kind of tell everybody, so the teams went out and had a look at kind of the layouts. I'm not sure actually if I pass over to my consultant colleague.
Hi, yeah, Richard Franklin from Atkins Realis. So we met up with Jenny, Chris Reynolds from Surrey and Sophie Piper from Waverley, the heritage officers, to talk through the ironstone on Castle Street. It's a particular area of expertise with Chris Reynolds. So we get some good feedback from Chris, which we've taken on board. And I think we've come to some consensus now for the use of the ironstone in Castle Street. And we're just continuing discussions with our Surrey lab team about the methodology for what's termed pitching, which is relaying the ironstone. But I think we've made some good progress on that now. So.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Yeah, Catherine.
Just because the ironstones have been quite contentious, at what point can councillors expect to see some kind of new plan that shows where we're currently proposing to put them based on the discussions you've had?
Our urban realm teams prepared an updated kind of paving plan, but I'm not sure whether I'd just discuss with Elaine about when we're okay to release that, I guess. But
I haven't seen it yet. It's obviously come through when I've been here.
In the near future, anyway. Yeah, good. Well, and thank you for everybody for getting to a landing on that, which is excellent. Catherine.
The only thing we discussed at the last board meeting that hasn't come out in this discussion is the rain gardens on the borough. We obviously had concerns about the fact that we wanted to retain pavement widths, which I know is in slight conflict with increasing the size of the rain gardens. We did say that we would have a discussion about that, and we haven't had one. As you know, there were some alternatives that maybe Farnham Town Council could have helped with, dealing with the water close to the buildings rather than dealing with it at the road's edge. But we haven't had that discussion. Would it be all right if one of the meetings that the Surrey County Council has set up is to discuss that issue, or is it now too late?
As part of our detailed design, it's really important that we avoid certain utility company areas, so that at the moment, the team are looking at how they will actually fit in, because they're quite deep. They connect obviously to certain drainage points. So it's quite important that before we almost get there, that the team review that, because that's what the trial trenching, etc., is looking at this moment. So with bated breath, I'll come to you and you can see them. I think it's quite important actually, just to mention here that it'd be really good to have some form of community gardening, which always works very well in high streets. And I know that South East in Bloom is very successful in Farnham, so it might be worth Farnham Town Council discussing, you know, the planting of those rain gardens. So I just bring that point in.
Happy to do so once we are told what it is and where it's going to be.
So was that a yes to, I can set up a meeting once you've got the plans?
Yes.
But I think, but just to make sure that so that the meeting needs to understand that there may be restrictions on any changes to things. So as long as it's sort of on that basis. Yep.
Just also note, some of the rain gardens are placed to stop people crossing. So they have like a double aspect as well. It's not just obviously to environmentally improve, it's also to improve safety as well. You know, at certain crossing points, it just stops that diagonal crossing, that's all. So just when we look at them, that's something we need to consider as well.
Okay, any other item business anybody wishes to raise? If not, under the risk of repetition, if I can just say what I said at the beginning, which is, I mean, we are now, you know, we are moving forward into the delivery phase, which is good news, but an absolute recognition that you know, there needs to be engagement and consultation and flexibility as far as possible in terms of how the scheme is delivered. You know, from the county council's perspective, you know, once we've got the contractor lined up, you know, there will be cost in moving that schedule. So we need to make sure that as much as possible that once we've collectively agreed what that schedule looks like, that we try and stick with that. There will be things inevitably that happen that might cause that to change. But just to reassure the retailers in particular that nothing will happen as part of this scheme before Christmas that will be disruptive to the trading in the town centre. But I mean, I think, you know, I think we're all keen to get on with this, and indeed to get to the finished result, which I think is, you know, it will be a significant enhancement to this you know, this beautiful town. So I'm hoping that we can kind of work through those issues as they come along. But and thanks to the three county councillors in particular for all the work that you've done, you know, in liaison and to the town council and to the borough council. But if we can try and you know, push as much of the sort of the communication through the three councillors to the team and back, then that will probably speed it up and simplify it and so on. And then I think to Ben, you know, that comms piece is really important. I did explain or show Elaine actually some of the stuff that the county has done in Bramley, where there's been a major incident with a petrol leak, and you know, 660 houses with bottled water, and you know, BT and the utility, all sorts of things. But the comms piece and you know, the top lines brief that's gone has been really effective in keeping people informed. And I know that's a sort of a kind of an emergency situation, but it almost needs that type of approach to this to make sure that there's not any kind of misinformation that is you know, circulating. Okay, anything anybody else wishes to say? I think, Dawn, this is sadly your last meeting as you move on to higher things. So we wish you every success in your new role down in, unfortunately, Sussex. But you know, I know that you know that Surrey is the greatest county in the country. You'll be saying that exactly. Okay. In that case, we will meet again after the summer, I think. So the next meeting. So have hopefully a bit of a break over the summer. Thank you all very much.